Father Fábio. I still can't understand how people have so much faith. After all, in reality, what is having faith? I go to masses. I participate in the teams of Our Lady. I pray. Evangelize every day. I believe in the existence of God. But I can't have this faith that my mother has. For example, please guide me about it. Am I sinning against God? You see, guys, it is interesting. Sometimes we have a temptation to think of our faith always in comparison. I always say that comparison is a very ungrateful way to live, or even qualify one thing. Qualifying the reality, for example. Comparing is ungrateful, because sometimes that situation, it does not deserve to be compared. It is unique. Everything we compare is in danger of creating injustice within us, or risks creating injustice outside us. Comparing is a strange way we have to commit injustice. And I always say that at the moment we are talking about faith, we have no right to compare anyone to anyone. Because otherwise we end up disregarding some aspects of faith that are suddenly more alive in one, less alive in another, but cannot be considered more important or less important. These are different aspects. Psychology teaches us, right? There are 3 very interesting perspectives of psychology. One that considers that the human being is the result of genetic conditioning. So he is what it is because he was given a genetics. The other, linear of behavioral psychology, will say no. That it is the result of the environment. I even had that famous phrase, right? Give me a child, and I make it. And an intellectual or a marginal. So it's that other chain that believes that the human being is the result of the environment. And I find it interesting that there is a third line that says, he's neither better nor worse because he is genetically programmed, right? Because it has a genetic load. He is neither better nor worse because he was created in this middle or not. That. He is different. So, he is not determined by either genetics or in the middle. He has a difference. And from this difference, the person is. The person is what he is. Then, guys, there is a whole influence on what I receive genetically. What I received culturally. Faith is born of this, my people. I believe according to the environment that provided me, the instruments of my faith. What is faith? Faith is that you have the possibility to believe in what you don't see. Because if you see, it is no longer faith. That's why I sometimes question some models of religion, where everything is very explained, everything very clear. Everything is very clean. Everything is very justified. No. Faith, it is born just what we can't see. I understand love, for example, as a form of faith. Why do you love that person? I don't know. It's an ungrateful question, isn't it? It's not like this. Doesn't love survive? One don't know either. He survives from what I know, but he keeps us next to each other is precisely for what we don't know about each other yet. This is faith. I have faith in you. This is beautiful, right? You'll take a shower. You never think. Do you have an acid in this soap? You do not think. You act from good faith. It is what makes him believe that a person has not damaged his soap. He did not make an attack on his soap. This is faith. Everything is experience of faith. You are here inside this theater. You are in faith that its foundations are solid. It won't fall on our head. Have you ever wondered if we started to doubt everything? You would no longer enter the supermarket because you think it falls. I don't get closer to that person because I think they will betray me. No. Everything is experience of faith. Now, how does it manifest itself before the sacred? All of this manifests itself in sacred faith from the experience we have as a person. The great injustice is when I want to compare my faith with my mother's, for example. Someone could say, Father Fábio, your mother has much more faith than you. I do not agree with that, because my faith is different from my mother. But I cannot say that one faith is superior to another. Everything we consider superior, people, generates prejudice, generates racism, isn't it? Doesn't racism survive in the world precisely because people find themselves better than others? The same thing happens on the horizon of faith. We do not have the right to compare anyone's faith, so be careful. You have a specific way of believing in God. You have a specific way of living your experience of the sacred. Ready? Final point. The experience is yours. The way of seeing, interpreting, feeling this God is yours. It cannot be compared, because otherwise you start living that thing. I am better or I am worse. And in fact, we don't have to. Not even people who feel better. No people who feel worse. By the way, I think the problems of the world would be solved the day we put these questions before our eyes. You are no worse or better. It is just different. Religious tolerance is born of this. I can't feel better than you. So much so that there is a theologian that I like a lot. He always says, every religion has the right to live his Old Testament. You who already live, for example, you who are a Christian, who are already within the New Testament, you risk looking at the old one and talking like this. Our Lady, we are much better than them. Only there are people who are still in Old Testament, and we don't have the right to look at their context and say that we are better. No. Similarly, as I do not have the right to look at a person, suddenly, who has not studied any theology, and to say that he has no faith because I know a little more than she, right? Faith cannot be compared. Faith is a particular experience, unique. Unique. Even if this faith is universal, it will manifest itself very particularly in people. So we are very unfair every time we compare. This is good because it creates a humility within us. I'm no better than anyone, no one is better than me, we are just different. A first person talks here about the panic syndrome I had. My name is Lucia. I'm from Goiatuba, inland of Goiás. I follow the Lord very much in the spiritual driving programs. And when I don't watch, I see on YouTube, and it has helped me a lot. Because since January, I am undergoing treatment due to an anxiety disorder depression, and I still suffer a lot because inside me there are very poorly resolved things. When the Lord went through panic syndrome showed me how much we should fight and never give up, and this is what I have always been doing, following the Lord and living one day at a time. I started to get God, and if it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be here anymore. A big hug. Lucia. Thank you very much for your sharing. For the opportunity we have to reflect this question. Whenever I can, I bring here. Depression is a very serious disease. It is sometimes considered by many to be fresh and not. But it is good for you to realize, I saw that you are very attentive to it, from what you wrote, that you identify that there are things that are poorly resolved in your life. This is the starting point. Sometimes depression is just a consequence of a life that is being poorly lived, and no use taking the medicine only. If you do not move the cause, the medicine will treat the symptom, and you will be eternally depending on that medicine because you have not acted in the cause. And acting on the cause does not depend on medicines, it depends on our will. The medicine is very important to stabilize us, to give us emotional comfort, especially when we live acute pain. A person, for example, when it goes through a traumatic situation, it is possible that the doctor indicates some medications to help live that acute phase. But then the doctor himself helps to remove, because he passed the acute phase. Then we need to deal with the situation that saddens us. I remember a couple of weeks ago I shared here with you, just as I identified that I was living a certain numbness, nothing was bothering me. Everything was very good and I was a great person. Because you see no problem at all. But I'm not like that. I'm not like that. And I realized, very consciously, that this was a result of medicines in me. So I searched my doctor and asked her to be who I was, and consciously administer my situation again. Of course, panic syndrome is very dangerous. It can lead to death if we don't take care of it. So in this acute phase, we really need the medicine. But then as we go over, we have the right and the need to start recruiting our own resources. That the big problem, my people, is when we do not face the problem that depresses us. That is sometimes a life structure that has not been modified. Sometimes it is a job where you are not happy. Sometimes it is a relationship that you are doing you very badly. And you have not had the courage to establish a new way of living this relationship. Sometimes it is a state of life that is doing you harm. And if we will not live the confrontations of the situations that depress us, that saddens us, the medicine will only postpone the pain. Unfortunately, it is like that. I am very worried about seeing how easily we refer to the medicines and how we have. Because we are very easily being referred to the medicines, we are procrastinating, postponing to touch those wounds that is necessary for them to be healed. So, Lucia, I am very happy that you are conscious and that despite the emotional suffering you live, you are finding our program here. That is also in my preaching on YouTube. One word has the same effect as a tablet sometimes. It causes a well-being within us. It causes hope, and that is very good. And we cannot give up. I have a friend, a family very close to me there in Campina Grande, who gave up last week. He killed himself, drank poison in front of his children. A very sad situation. An emotional maladjustment that was already evolving and suddenly happened. This we know is very common. A lot of people give up on life. I'm not afraid to say, I wanted to give up in July this year. My suffering was so great that I wanted to cease to exist. I couldn't live with that suffering anymore. I was so sharp inside me that I lost the desire to live. But this is temporary. If we take care, we say again, we take the medicine at the right time. Look for the professional at the right time. And then you start to refer with occupational therapies, change of habit, change of food. I already said this once. I have a great admiration for Margarita Felix, who is a psychologist from Recife. She has a very interesting job, that it is the recovery of depressed people through habits change and feed change. A very serious researcher. She's a very serious researcher who surrounded herself with good professionals and was picking up research around the world, was bringing into her institute in place her work. And how many people were recovered from depression, healed from depression? Changing habits and changing food? Yes, because depression is also chemical, not only motivational. Sometimes the person is sad. It is not because he has a reason to be sad. It is because he is chemically disorganized. What is the chemistry of our organism but our food, our hormonal production, which is all stimulated through habits? We know that physical activity has the power to help regularize our hormonal production. So there are so many things to do. We need to be less lazy in hand with us. Sometimes I get very worried, Jocelyn, that I find very accommodated people in the capsules. Do not change their behavior. So they will depend on this medicine forever. Suddenly that medicine has no effect. You need to go to a stronger, and it has no end. It is a very serious danger. A very serious danger these days. This accommodation of people not to change what is actually killing. What is actually doing. As we bid farewell on Path of Faith, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your presence. Keep the conversation going by commenting below, liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel for more soul-nourishing messages.